write and set, I'm sorry, the board's job is to write and set policy. The superintendent's job is to implement policy. How would you handle conflict with this area?
This would be the first board of 7 not to get along. Essentially, that's what comes down to. You're going to have conflict, and you should, because you represent the community. You've been elected, you bring different points of view. You need to ask the difficult questions, and then you need to come to a common understanding. When policy is passed, it is the superintendent's job to take that policy, break it into the steps, communicate that out, build trust with the policy, and also give the people that it impacts the skill to do the change that we're asking them to do. That is essentially how you successfully implement any policy. Communication, trust, and skill building. Well, there's a fourth one, and that's accountability. Because, again, if we pass a policy here, and say it was a policy of no zeros, all right? We're not allowed to give zeros, all right? A student's allowed to make up work as many times, and boards have passed this policy before. Well, if the superintendent does not hold the district to that policy, those people who might be less than willing but going along because it's been communicated and they do trust the board, then they actually could decide that we don't have to do it. The board passed it, but this really isn't mandatory. It's one of those things that's mandatory, but we're not accountable for it. So you have to hold people accountable. So again, those 4 things you want to implement any policy: communicate, build trust with the policy, build the skill, and then hold everyone, including the board, accountable for that policy.
The next question is mine, and of course I get one with 3 parts, but what do you believe is the day-to-day role of the superintendent? What does your day look like? And how will you work with other members of the cabinet?
That is a good question. The day-to-day role of the superintendent, I would love to say that it's one of planning and implementing the policies of the board. Essentially, I work very closely with my superintendent. I'm one of 6 central office members. I sit on the executive team. We are constantly having to solve the problems or the emergencies that come up on a day-to-day basis. And these things happen every day. So I would love to say that the superintendent's job is all about strategic planning and implementing that plan and making connections with people. But the reality is that you have to solve the problems when they happen. You have to be flexible with time. You have to be willing to drop everything at a moment's notice at any time of day to get something done. Essentially, a superintendent's role during every single day is to build the people up around them. When you're not solving emergencies, you want to make sure that you are out, you are communicating the policies, you're talking to the people that are doing the work in schools, and that you're visible. This is a larger district. I do work in a district where I have to work behind a computer a lot, and one thing I am constantly on myself about is not being out in the schools enough. The schools are the fun place, where the kids are, where all the energy is. Unfortunately, I find myself doing a lot of budget sheets and a lot of state reports that are not very exciting. So again, the superintendent's role, a lot of planning, emergency, but you do have to be visible. You have to you have to promise the community to get out and be a part of it. I'm sorry, I haven't heard all the parts yet. What does your normal day look like? Okay, I've kind of gone over that. And how would I work with other members of the cabinet? I'm personally on a cabinet right now. And what I've always appreciated is a cabinet that is not full of what you term as yes men or yes people. I really do welcome different opinions that help to expand our view of what is actually happening and what we need to do. So I constantly look to the other members of my cabinet, and I would as a superintendent, for the feedback, for the other angles, so we could see the entire picture as we make the best decisions possible.
May I ask you, you said that you're one of 6 central office members. What are the other positions?
Special education, student services, which essentially monitors many of the crisis day-to-day events, compliance, calendar issues. suspensions, retentions, those types of things. I'm the director of instruction, and then we have the CFO, the director, the associate superintendent, who is the director of personnel, and then the superintendent. And we're a district roughly 4,000 students. So we are spread rather thin, and many times our jobs overlap. So these are people who I've dealt with, and many times we're solving issues that are special ed based, but we're all working together.
Alrighty. What do you know about our community and school district?
You're a working class community that is very similar to Garden City. Your school-age student population has been dwindling. Your counts are down. The community is, it can be rather political. I've been here at the board meetings, and they can come in and they have many opinions. But one thing I will say is that, and I've been to a few of your board meetings, all the topics are similar. We're all talking about the same things. The comments from the audience are the exact comments that we've heard from the audience. The faces are different. We're all experiencing nearly the exact same thing. So I don't have any personal ties to Taylor or Taylor Public Schools. But it is a community very similar to Garden City, and one that I currently serve now and have served the last 8 years. About the school district, again, I did have some conversation, and I know that the perception is many parts within the district don't necessarily work very effectively together, and that sometimes that focus on students and their learning being first isn't first and foremost. I know that sometimes your labor groups don't necessarily get along. I know that you're steadily losing school of choice students to other districts. This is sort of my first graphic, so I got it last time, so I'll pass it out.
Thank you.
All right, so. So when we're talking about losing schools of choice kids to other districts, this is from misschooldata.com, and you can see that the yellow are the amounts of students that we lose, and the blue are the amount of students from those areas that come into this area. You see that we should do some showcasing of the great things that we do in this district. I mean, this is one of the topics actually brought up at your board meeting of what can we do to make sure these kids want to come back. So I do know that there is a perception problem right now that we have with quite a few families that is helping to contribute to the student loss, and something that we need to be very serious about when talking about rebranding our school of choice program.
I was looking for the city of Taylor. Let's go do it again. Did you not want to fire city on there, or?
What's that?
The city of Taylor is not listed here.
The city of Taylor, these are all Taylor Public School kids. So those are the students that you, in yellow, are the ones who are leaving, and those in blue are the ones that are coming from those.
Okay, thank you. Number 6, what should a board member do when contacted by a parent with a school problem?
So this is an interesting question, and I thought I was asked the question last time about what's the board's role in a district? Is it just to create policy? And you asked me that question, and that was one when I left here. I said I really sort of missed an opportunity here because my sister is a school board member. I am a parent in the district my sister is a school board member of. I am a parent that approaches her about things that happen in the school district on occasion, just in our normal conversation. There is no way that a board member is in any way, shape, or form going to be able to avoid comments from the community about what's happening in the schools. And it is part of your responsibility of how we solve that. Well, essentially, and I don't know how your chain of command works for your school board. Essentially, the board member who's been approached with the issue should go to the board president, and the board president should have that conversation with the superintendent. And if it is, and you get a call, and I'm sure many of you get these calls already, you can get a call any time of day about something that's gone wrong. And anytime, and as a school administrator, I experienced this too, where I would get a call and it was always one side of the story, or two sides of the story, and stories, again, have all these different angles. And then it becomes the superintendent's job to follow up if it is a serious matter and figure out how we solve that issue.
Can I follow up with that? So are you saying if a teacher or a parent addresses me, you would want me to go to John first and John go to you, or do you have an open door? Would you have an open door policy where I could go right to you?
And I don't know how your board does it, but Garden City's board is structured that as a board member, as a trustee, you would go to the board president would have conversation. And of course, the superintendent has conversation with the other board members, but essentially it's keeping a chain of command within the board. And that's something I would suggest that you have. In terms of an open door policy, conversations about anything there's no problem with that, like the conversation we had in the parking lot when I left last time. And of course, those are always conversations you could have. And if it's something good, I mean, I guess in this question, we suppose this is something negative. If it is something that you've been told that's a good thing, an extremely positive thing in the district, and not necessarily a problem I have to solve, I don't have an issue with you saying it during the communications part of the school board, or saying it during board comments and saying how proud you are when this is the parent that approached and this is the wonderful thing that happened. And I think that's completely appropriate. But if it is a problem that could potentially get bigger, or some sort of solution needs to be made to it, then that's definitely something we need to keep within the chain of command.